Barbara With, and welcome to part 3 of Conflict Revolution, number 1, the revolution. So we have come to the time we're going to start to plug in everything that you've learned thus far into a structure. So just very quickly reviewing, we've been working with 3 human dimensions: intellect, analysis, thinking, judgments, stories, intuition, the impelling for the next most advantageous step for the good of the whole, and then emotion, that deep passion within us. And if you've been doing your homework thus far, you've been paying attention through the course of your day with a witness, where you sort of step back and you make the decision that as much as you humanly can, you're going to observe yourself through the course of a day. And what that's done is it's pulled your intellectual focus off of all the stories. Not that they're not still running in your head, but you've stepped back a little from them, and you're looking with this new perspective, and you're looking for very specific things. This isn't just some general philosophy that you're supposed to float along with life in. This is a participation in your own life. So with the revolution, 2 things. We're going to actually take a conflict, and I have a plethora of my own that I bring and share, and I'm transparent. I'll be as transparent as you will. But then we're also going to plug in the pieces of our conflict, the actual story that we bring with us about this conflict. We're going to plug those pieces into a matrix of sorts. And when we're done, we'll have a roadmap, a game plan, an action plan for you with your conflict and me with my conflict. This is what we'll be doing. Instead of trying to figure out he said, she said, and I meant this and you meant that, we're going to take all that and put it into a map, and then this will be what we do. And this is one way the conflict revolution reduces drama. I can tell you, and if you know me at all, you know that I'm a dramatic person. I am. But as far as having to create like personal drama to get involved in, I'm much less apt. I'm much more apt not to act, not to engage, not to get sucked into things and sit back and have a different relationship to life than having to come and make it so dramatic. Sometimes it's necessary, but for the most part, this is how we're going to get our focus off of everybody else around us and back onto our domain. So first, you need to find a conflict. And I would say, remember that every conflict, no matter how big and dramatic the story is around it, once you start to peel away the layers and you get down to the real root of the conflict, honestly, little tiny conflicts don't have much difference than great big huge conflicts. There's an emotional difference. If you're conflicted because you lost your notebook, there's a level of emotional attachment. If you're conflicted because your husband beats you, so there's different dramatic levels of conflict. But when you peel all the layers down, you're going to find there's about 2 in the whole world. And that's the beautiful part about doing conflict revolution with a group. Because everyone comes and they bring their conflict, and then we write out their pieces and plug in the maps. And so you get to see everybody's very transparent. And you get to see really, truly, that there's only about 1 or 2 conflicts in the world. It's a beautiful thing to have this new way to be able to relate to those conflicts that are a part of life. We're not going to ever end conflicts. We're just going to find a way to use them to our advantage. So as we head in, pick a conflict that is as specific as you can. It can be anything. We've done everything. We've done the war, we've done money, we've done health, we've done spouses and children and grandparents and stepsisters, and I've seen so many conflicts in my life. So take the one that's the most concrete that you can find. So you can have a very specific story. We want the story to be specific here. We don't need really esoteric. However, you also want to pick a conflict that hasn't been resolved yet, so that you have an opportunity to see how the process works. For me, I have any number of conflicts, but today I'm going to pick the one, and I name all of my conflicts because I like sound bites. This one is called I Am a Liar. And this is a good one. So conflict resolution is a process to witness our domain. We're going to pay attention and be mindful of our domain. And we're going to learn to observe the decisions that we ourselves are making on an intricate, intimate level of self-awareness. So while we're going about our daily lives, we're also stepping into an observer and a witness, and we're watching what we think, how we act, the decisions that we make, what we feel, what our intuition tells us. We're observing ourselves having a relationship to whatever's going on in the world. So it's like watching a consciousness of your consciousness. And these three terms that we want to just, before we get into that, the first one is projection. And projection is where you define the source of your thoughts, feelings, or senses to something outside yourself. So projection is when I think that you have made me mad. You are the source of my anger. You've made me mad. And then the flip side of that with projection is when we project onto ourselves subjective, judgmental, degenerative thoughts. Who do you think you are? You can't do this. You're screwing up again. So there's a tape loop that has subjective, judgmental, and degenerative thinking within it that we put on ourselves. It's a dual definition of projection. So we'll be using that term. Then again, with dual definition is the term trigger. So trigger is the first definition, is the actual person outside yourself that appears to have caused the emotional engagement or reaction. So you made me mad, so you're the trigger. And then also the trigger is the actual emotion that gets triggered. So it's the anger. I'm triggered to anger. I'm triggered to happiness. I'm triggered to love. I'm triggered. So it's the actual emotion, the trigger, and then it's the person or the thing that sort of instigated your awareness that you were feeling these things. And the third term is detachment. And in conflict resolution, detachment means letting go of the idea that anything outside you is the source of what you're experiencing, and revolving that focus back then around to self, 180 degrees. So it isn't necessarily detachment like you don't care, or detachment like you're sort of stepping back and giving people space, whatever. It specifically means that we're going to look at what's outside ourselves. We're going to look at it and listen to it. And we're going to let go of the idea that it's about that. And we're going to turn our focus back to ourselves in order to find out what's going on in our domain as reflected through our relationship to what's out there. So that's detachment, projection, triggers, and detachment. All right, let's get to revving.